Hi, I'm William Tenholder, and I want to welcome you to my Master Series. This one will end up being 2323 of the Chess Mind Game series, and this is a very instructive game. So I'm going to go through it pretty quickly for those who are, very keen, already masters in their own right. I would like to show you this game at a pretty high speed. And so we're going to see how this is both on white side. We know that would normally be a Queen's Gambit setup. And on the black side, we end up with the King's Indian. And so that's pretty common way to develop. And Bobby Fischer used to love to use this opening and was very successful with it. So we're going to go through this now fairly quickly. We can see some of the subtleties inside. Pawn takes, attacking the knight. Pawn takes pawn. And now the queens exchange. And so it's a very, very quick middle game because the development comes pretty quickly here. And we can see these are all very, very good moves. Both are playing well. And so we get further development, and then an attack, and then further development. And the key here is to get the rooks rolling, right? Whoever gets the rooks rolling. So now there will be a few tricks and traps. So we're going to kick that bishop out. We have a very strong position, and the beauty of the King's Indian is that you can, with confidence, kick that bishop out even with your g5 pawn. Most people would not play that. It is tricky unless you have a very good defense. So now there's a solid move, and one of the moves of the game here. The knight attacks the bishop, and now the knight pulls into the outpost station. Beautiful. So bishop is pretty much forced to take, and now we have a beautiful position for black. And let's go through this quickly. I mean, it's just a beautiful game. Let's look at how this game actually unfolds, right? And boom, they didn't see that one coming. And so now they attack the bishop. Bishop has a good square to go to. That's important. Has to be able to come back and around and then attack. So that was the important decision of the game, I would say. Now you see that bishop is defending the rook on d8. And that is the whole purpose of that move, to give the bishop mobility and defend. And so now we can see how this is working out, right? The knight coming up to attack. They do their plan. However, the plan could not be completed as they wished. So I took their rook, and then knight takes. Bishop now can get into position and force the knight to move. Now the knight is toast. And so now we're looking at a winning position for black. Really, we're up a piece. And now, the thing to learn about a position like this is to get your pawns in position and get your king in position. So now is where we get to speed this up, and watch watch these kings move, right? Look at that king just on the stairway to heaven. You know, we left a portal open. As soon as that king gets into that E6, E5, they can't block the king. So now let's just look at how beautifully this progresses. Now the king is blocked out by the last move. So let's watch how many moves the white king does. I mean, it's tremendous. And then the black king and the knight, they do their work. And, you know, the white king, cannot compete against these pieces. And they're in very much Zugswang. Any move they make, they're going to lose a piece. So this is another thing to realize. When you've got your opponent in Zugswang, you can take advantage of it. They are in Zugswang, we are not. So we take full advantage of that position. We are a piece ahead, and the king has found a way to get in. However, we have a great move here. Bishop into the corner, and look, we'll see at high speed how this plays out, because this is going to be about 25 moves by the kings. Excuse me. And so even though we have a winning position, we still have to work for it. The bishop's in a great spot, connected with the pawn. That's an immovable object. They just can't. The pawn on E6 means the king cannot get in. It's completely blocked out. So now the king is just going to have to move around. Well, we have a passed pawn. And so let's look at this in fast motion. This is the way you do it. You bring up that pawn, and then you bring up the second pawn. Now, we're trying at this point not to let them get into a stalemate position. And most of us know, maybe if you're just learning chess or intermediate, you should know that if you make the wrong move here, and the king has no move, so just as an example, if I were to move the pawn up, and if the king cannot move, and the king would be in actually moving the pawn up is not so bad, but it just doesn't have a move. So it would have been a stalemate. So let's go through how we avoid this stalemate. This is the way we did it. First, we have to remove the bishop so that the king has a place to go. And as long as the king can move, then there's no stalemate. So we carefully entice the king into a position that would not be a stalemate, it would be a checkmate. So this is the way we do it. They have to move the king, and so that's the way you do it. You get the king into a position where you can checkmate the king. And in this position, the king has to move into a checkmate position. Check on the king, and then they resign because the king can only move into the corner, and then the bishop comes into the checkmate position. So that's the way we had to avoid stalemate. So in this game, we got to see a nice King's Indian opening. We got to see a few tricks of the trade, um, gaining advantage, and then turning that advantage into a race with the kings. And I believe I counted the white king made over 25 moves in this game until we finally were able to capture it. So what an interesting game. We saw Zugswang, and then from Zugswang we saw the avoidance of the stalemate, and then finally checkmate. So yeah, great game to learn from. I'm William Tenholder. I love chess.